So last January, 2 weeks before the Houston Half Marathon, my coach made me do what he called the impossible workout. 30 minutes at threshold pace, followed by 1 kilometer of kicking, even faster. All of it at half marathon pace, which for me is about 4:56 per mile.
You had to slide that one in there, didn't you, sir?
My point is that running on frozen roads near my house in Toronto to do this workout sounded daunting, and going to some gym and running on a regular treadmill sounded even worse. Luckily, Michael had a Wahoo Kickr Run treadmill stashed in his home in northern Toronto, and so I took advantage of that last winter.
So that's why you kept coming over to my house all the time.
I mean, I also came for the company.
Sure.
And mainly for the Kickr Run's run free mode, where the treadmill uses sensors to adjust its carpet speed so that it can respond to your running speed in real time. So it responds to you and not the other way around. Now that was helpful for the workout's kick portion, so I could accelerate naturally without having to worry about pressing buttons all the time. The treadmill also comes with the lateral tilt feature, which will simulate the angles of running on a natural terrain. So every step is not the same, which is a good thing. And it's kind of like if you're running outdoors. And bonus, the Kickr Run connects with a laundry list of third-party apps, including Strava, the Wahoo Run app, and Zwift. So you can run free in Watopia.
It's quiet, simple, and effective. The treadmill follows you and not the other way around. It's available in the US, the UK, Germany, and Austria. And now you can get a free Headwind smart fan worth $319 when you order the Kickr Run from Wahoo Fitness using the promo code MHRUN. That's all one word, MHRUN. Take our word for it, as well as the professional athletes that use it, including ultra runner David Roche, triathlete Chelsea Sodero, Olympic gold medalist Cole Hawker.
And now, me.
Okay, let's get to the show. This is the Marathon Handbook Podcast, and I'm joined by my colleagues Alex Sear, Caitlin Tossi, and this is an instant reaction pod to the 2025 Berlin Marathon, which is just sort of wrapping up now. The mere mortals, our peers in the running world, are crossing the finish line as we hit record on this podcast, but the elite races have wrapped. Very dramatic. Both races were dramatic in different ways. Let's get into our thoughts right away, guys. I think we got to start with the men's race. We got to start with Sebastian Sawe. He won the race in commanding fashion. I think we had the sense in advance of this race that he was going to try to do something special, and he certainly did. He ends up winning in 2 hours, 2 minutes, 16 seconds, which the commentators at the end of the broadcast were saying, they're like, this is like a hot weather world record, if there's such a thing. And I can't help but to agree, like, incredible, like, just as an amazing performance. I was blown away by the fact that this guy could hold on in the last, especially all by himself in the second half.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it, because he was clearly, I mean, for most of the race, he seemed to be keeping everything under control. And I'm referring to the heat. I'm referring to the extreme heat that the Berlin Marathon usually doesn't experience. But you could tell by those final kilometers, you could see the sweat. You could see the effort level rising, just because he had to push that much harder in that heat. And I think to be able to get that time with those conditions was incredible. I mean, he was only about what, guys, like 10 seconds off of his personal record.
Yeah, he's like a really tight and consistent racer. Now in his 3 marathons, there are about 30 seconds that separate all of his times. Yeah, he's like a 2:02 guy, dyed in the wool now. Has gone between 2 flat and between 2:02 and 2:03 3 times in all of his marathons.
So this very much felt like the race designed for him in many respects. Going into this, in our preview podcast, we talked about how there was this sense that maybe he was going to try something special. They didn't show his hand too much beforehand, but as we noted in the preview, there was a bit of hype or brouhaha. I don't know how to categorize it. Basically, he indicated that he had put himself through this he and his sponsor Adidas, who sponsored the Berlin Marathon, put himself through this pretty intense, rigorous anti-doping protocol that he imposed upon himself, where he was tested some like insane number of times over the last couple of months. And it's like, why would he do that? And the reason why he did that was immediately self-evident when he paced out the first 5 kilometers in sub 2-hour pace. So he was running, I got this here somewhere here, guys. Hold on a second. He was running 1:59. It was like a solid 1:59 split. 14:09 for the first 5K.
He was trying to set up that cushion right from the beginning.
Yeah. And this was kind of crazy because it was like the starting temperature was really warm. So by the time the elite races were wrapping, we were north of 25 degrees Celsius. So we're in the high 70s. I mean, that is just, and the humidity was apparently quite high. It was quite sunny. Brutal conditions. So he opens up in the first 5K. A couple of guys take the bait with him. Milkesha Mengesha, who won the race last year, goes with him, and so does the Tanzanian Gabriel Guille. And neither of those guys finished the race, I don't think.
No.
At least they haven't finished the race yet. As far as this race is still unfolding. They could be walking it in, but probably not. They probably both dropped. Mengesha hung with him until 10K, and then basically it was Sawe all on his own. By 15K, Sawe had an 11-second buffer on Mengesha. And then by half, I mean, man, these splits were a wild thing to look at, guys. They're just we put a post on Instagram right afterwards breaking down his 5-kilometer splits because he was on world record pace right up until the halfway point. He split the first half in 1 hour flat 16 seconds. So that's basic math, 2 hours 32 seconds, the world record being 2 hours 35 seconds. So he was on a minute.
He was right there. And, it's probably not just a coincidence, but where he did start getting off that pace, not only was it warming up, but that's also right around where he lost all of his pacers. Because right around that halfway point, you started seeing, one by one, these guys were kind of falling off. And then I'm pretty sure it was around kilometer 25, he was on his own. So it was then just Sebastian Sawe on his own for the rest of the race. So that also probably had something to do with those paces wavering a little bit, in addition to the heat.
Yeah, so much for the deepest race in Berlin Marathon history, or however they labeled it. I was kind of calling bullshit on that from the start. They didn't have the massive names. They had a lot of time trial guys who had run around 2:03. Where were they at the end? I mean, if you need any testament for how tough it was to run in that type of weather, well, look at everyone who blew up. He was by himself.
By himself, completely.
So let me just go through these splits for a second, because they're kind of wild to look at. Both because he's running sub 2 hour pace, which we have not seen in some time, for a pretty significant amount of time. First 10K, opening 10K, he runs sub 2 hour pace, slips off a little bit, and then he's in the world record zone right up until just after the halfway point, and he starts to slide slightly, but the slide, the drift is not nearly as dramatic as you'd imagine with these conditions.
Right.
So he goes 25K, he's splitting in 2 hours, 44 seconds. And then he holds on through 30K in that exact same pace, starts to slide a little bit. Classic scenario. Elites, recreational runners alike, last 10, 12K of the marathon, vice grips on your head, body is starting to feel the wear and tear of the distance, and especially in the heat. Usually it's a precipitous fall in this sort of conditions. He still holds on 35K, 2:01:34 pace on set to run perhaps a 2:01:34, 40K, 2:02:11, and then he finishes in 2:02:16. I did a little side-by-side of Kelvin Kiptum's world record in 2023 at the Chicago Marathon, his splits, as well as Kipchoge's was the world record holder previous to Kiptum. And that race, that was also a Berlin Marathon performance. Really interesting to look at all these splits. I think we're going to assemble a story on this for the site, because it's like kind of a fascinating study. And I think Kiptum's performance, the conditions in Chicago were perfect on that day. A little cool, 10-ish degrees. Kipchoge's performance, I believe, was 2022. I'm going off the top of my head here. I recall it being fairly decent as well, but this is like I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument this is the best performance of the three. You could make that argument.
But you know what we have to do? We have to get the formula for the heat and the humidity, and we've got to like stick these numbers in there and see what it would be if the conditions are the same conditions as, or did you already do that, Michael?
No, it's 7:00 Eastern time. I did not do that. I have been awake for a few hours now, but no.
But can we talk about the heat for 1 second? Because I feel like that was an avoidable thing that the Berlin Marathon didn't control for, because historically they never controlled for it, perhaps because historically they never really needed to. So we talked about this in our previous pod because we were looking at the time, and the race was starting at 9:15 local time in Berlin. And
late.
One of you kind of made a comment of like, why is this so late? Like, I feel like it could start at 7 a.m. And now that this heat might have robbed Sawe of, at the very least, a 2:01 XX and maybe something faster, I feel like this is a very legit thing to follow because, so thanks to my good friend ChatGPT, so take it with a grain of salt, I did a little deep dive on the temperature on every Berlin Marathon day and every Chicago Marathon day of the last 20 years. Okay.
Whoa.
Okay.
Nice.
Over the last 10 years, the average temperature for the Berlin Marathon and the Chicago Marathon at the time of finish was 19 degrees Celsius. So Fahrenheit, that would be around 73, 74?
That's below. It's 70-ish.
Around 70. Okay.
Yeah.
19 is 66.
Got it. 66. So consider this. The Berlin Marathon, Chicago Marathons are considered to be the two fast marathons on the circuit. And both of them happen at a temperature that's roughly 10 degrees higher than the optimal temperature to race in, which we know based on a bunch of studies around 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. Sorry, I'm always in Celsius. And so now I'm wondering, should we change something? At the very least, I mean, look, the Berlin Marathon can't just, pop out of the woodwork next year and decide that they're going to host it in November. But what I think they could do is start it at least at 7 a.m. local time.
Chicago starts its race, I believe, at 7 or 7:30 in the morning. So they're doing all they can, and they also have their race positioned in October. They're in a few weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to move a major marathon like in the event schedule of a major city. They've kind of got that spot locked in. But I do wonder if this continues to haunt Berlin in the future, because they've had a couple of hot days in the recent past as well. And you're right, Alex. It did kind of rob Sawe a little bit of a golden opportunity to run a world record. The lead commentator, Tim Hutchings, who is maybe the best in the world at doing this and has covered 1 million marathons and called a ton of world records and knows the sport through and through. He was noting in the broadcast, he was like, I think these conditions are costing Sawe like 2 minutes. And if you do the math on that,
yes, he did say that.
Yeah. That's 2 hours. That's a 2-hour marathon, right? So
it's a world record. We're looking at a world record.
World record, and if you're 2 hours low, you could probably muster up something with inside of you to crack that 2-hour barrier. I like to think. But take away from this, obviously, is that Sebastian Sawe is the best marathoner alive right now. Peak of his powers. Dog.
Can I give you a Sawe stat that I think confirms this?
Do it.
There are only 3 men in history who have run faster than 2:03 twice or more. Kelvin Kiptum, Eliud Kipchoge, Sebastian Sawe. And this was Sawe's 3rd time. Anyone else who's broken 2:03 has only ever done it once in their career.
Wow.
And Sawe is still getting started. And he's 3 for 3 in his last marathons. I think the hype around this guy is real.
Absolutely. And I should say the comp is now probably Kelvin Kiptum, because he only ran 3 marathons before he died. All 3 marathons were extraordinary, all in that 2:02 to 2 hour range.
Say Kiptum was in the 2:01s, I think, twice and then 2 flats. So it's almost like he's a
Yes.
step ahead of Sawe for now. But
Yep.
of course, Sawe hopefully will have more time.
Sawe's 29. He's, I mean, by today's standards, overall not late to the game, but by today's elite marathoning standards is coming to it a little late, but still kind of like absolute prime, right?
Like
so we
peaking.
could see another few amazing years from this guy. Again, Adidas athlete. We should mention a big win for the Adidas Adios Pro Evo 2, which he was wearing on his feet both in London and now in Berlin. So that shoe is just, we're doing our power shoe rankings here. That definitely fortifies that shoe towards, if not at the top of the list. And any other standout performances? A great strong run from the Japanese athlete Akasaki, who we remember from the Paris Olympics. We got a lot of TV time in Paris. Was sort of up in that lead group in Paris. He ran an amazing. He probably ran like the smartest race of the day, maybe.
The way that he closed in that heat was just amazing. I was looking at the bounce in his step. No one else had a bounce in their step like that when they went through the Brandenburg Gate and were coming towards the finish. I just said, where did he get that energy? It just looked like he paced it so smart because he was able to really turn up the gas at the end. And he wasn't running away from anyone. It wasn't like the women's race, which we'll get to, that was a little closer. He just was pumped. He was just excited. He was probably taken in the crowd and just sprinted towards the end. It was an amazing finish to watch.
It's kind of like throwing a carton of eggs at the wall and then one of them just doesn't crack. And because he pretty much even split at that.
He did. He ran right around 1:03 for the first half and finished in 2 hours, 6 minutes and 15 seconds for second place.
Yeah, that was incredible. Guys, while we're still on the men's race, I do have a question for you. And you guys have a lot of experience in this, watching lots of marathons. And I kind of want to know the etiquette to something that threw me a curveball. So, So we saw that around kilometer 10, right? We saw the champion from last year, Mengesha, was kind of falling off. And then we saw that Sebastian Sawe, he was getting away and he was the gap was growing. What is the etiquette with the pacers? Because there were 5 pacers at the time with Sawe, and not one of those pacers hung back to go with Mengesha. Like, do they need to stay at that? Do all 5 of them need to stay at that predetermined pace for as long as they can? Or would you think a couple of them should kind of hang back and try to bring along the second place to catch back up? Because they didn't.
Formally, they're not supposed to drop back. Formally, a pacemaker is there to set the pace, and they establish the pace and they hold the pace. That's what they're being paid to do. And they're being paid to show, to run at pace evenly up until a certain point, unless there's more specific instructions, like we want to pace it, more, we want to like ascend in our speed or whatever. But usually they don't get that cute. Usually it's just kind of like, we're going to go out and, what was it, like 1 hour and a little bit. We're going to go at world record pace for the first half, run that pace. So they're not supposed to drop back. Informally, sometimes in what's called the technical meeting the day before the marathon, when all the elites and the pacers and the agents and the race director all get together in a room and they kind of show their hand. It's like, okay, you're going to be running this pace. This is going to be Group A, Group B, Group C. Sometimes they will say, if a person falls back or whatever, one of the pacers can drop back. But usually with the A group, with the front elites, they don't do that. It's just you're holding a line for the pace, and that's that.
I thought it would have been nice to kind of give Mengesha a little bit of a boost, because he was close. He was just 10 seconds off for a while, and I thought if one of those guys just kind of hung back for a second just to see if they could bring him back on. But I'm sure if they broke the pace, they wouldn't have been able to catch back up. But still, I was thinking just be a pal.
I feel like watching it, that's the like kind and intuitive thing to do. It's like, don't leave the one guy hanging, especially if there's 5 pacers. But I guess it's like, in the event that the one pacer who chooses to drop and follow Mengesha instead would be the one pacer who still has some juice left at 30K and who can still help Sawe,
right?
You know, then
Exactly.
you're sabotaging your lead guy. So I think
Right.
it's an ammunition thing, right? It's like you want to keep as many people around Sawe as you can.
Got it.
Whereas, poor Mengesha was like,
Poor guy.
bro, come on, give me one guy.
Throw me a bone, help me out a little here. I know, because I just wanted to kind of see him still in the race. Because when Sawe took off, you were just like, okay, he's got this amazing entourage around him. You could barely see him. He was just in the middle of this, T-shaped formation that they had there. So, okay, it's all right. I was just kind of looking out for Mengesha.
I mean, ultimately, the race, they want to see the fastest possible time. They want to see a course record. They want to see a world record. And if they've just paid a boatload of money and brought all these pacers in and had this big plan, and Sawe's an Adidas athlete, he's their guy.
Yep.
They're positioning him. That's where they're primarily invested and interested. If Sawe were to have fallen off significantly, but was still in the lead, the pacers would drop back with him generally.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They don't just like run the line and disappear on him, but yeah.
Wait, to complicate the question, because now we're on this. If Mengesha would have been the one to drop Sawe, say the roles were reversed, and Mengesha's leading and Sawe's dropping back, then the pacers, they stay with Mengesha, right? Even if it's meant for Sawe, they do. They stay with the leader.
Yes. Yeah. In that case, though, I do wonder if, and then we're getting into like hypotheticals and sliding doors scenarios here, but if there's a parallel universe where Mengesha got away and was running ahead and Sawe had a tough day and was sliding backwards, if they would have had a pacer who was devoted to dropping back with him because of his stature, because he's an Adidas athlete, because it's an Adidas race, I don't know. We will never know.
We'll never know.
Exactly. Our parallel universe selves podcasting will be talking all about this right in this very moment as you listen to this. Okay. The multiverse. Okay, let's go into the women's race. The women's race was more complex, more hotly contested, at least for the first chunk of the race.
More competitive for sure.
Yeah, more competitive. And ultimately, in the end, just like this sudden little sprinkle of drama in the last, I don't know, kilometer or so. So, Rosemary Wanjiru of Kenya, she came in as the prohibitive favorite in the race, and she was in that lead group of, it kind of yo-yoed between 8 and 6 women for a chunk of the race. And then one by one, each woman fell off. And then it ended up being Rosemary Wanjiru's race to lose. And the 30-year-old delivered, but just barely.
Barely. What a finish.
Yeah. So Dira Dida, my girl, my
pre-race
pick.
Your pick. You were so close. She was so close, Michael.
She was like at least 30 seconds back and somehow like clawed her way back in the last 5 kilometers and appeared on screen out of nowhere. And like the commentators were like, what's going on? Where the heck did she come from? And I mean, if you gave Dira Dida like, I don't know, 200 more meters, maybe even 100 more meters, she might have caught her because she was closing hard. She ends up finishing just 3 seconds back. Wanjiru, maybe the signature victory of her career. She's won Tokyo as well. She pulls it off. She looked good in the second half. She didn't look like she was commanding things, but she looked like she was like hanging on quite well. She was taking a lot of fluid, and rightfully so, because it was so hot. Like she was hitting all the like, not just the bottle stations for the elite athletes, but also like all the water stations as well in between. She just kept grabbing like just cups of water and was just taking it in like crazy, slugging it back. And she crossed the finish line and she like collapsed at the finish line.
Yeah.
And they had to like, I think they had to cart her off. I hope she's okay. She was like a mess at the finish line.
Well, that close got really, you could tell that she was really stressed out because how many times did she look over her shoulder? And, you know, it may not seem like a big thing, but it really is a big thing. Every movement that you make when you're running like that is a ton of wasted energy. And she continuously looked over her shoulder. I'm just thinking when I'm running, like slowly in a trail race, and I have to think 3 times before I like take out a gel because it's so much effort just to make a movement, because you're just like really trying to stay on track. I can't imagine how much that took out of her, looking over her left shoulder, looking over her right shoulder because she had someone closing on her. So it was a lot of stress at the end, and that's probably what pushed her over the edge.
And that's her first win in Berlin that she could have lost. That was 15,000 euros on the line between first and second, if I recall correctly. Like there was a lot riding on it. So I'm a fan of Wanjiru. I mean, I was, and I am more so now because I think she's emerging as a new type of Helen Obiri style racing runner who always manages to find herself in the top 3 in races. So now, track record for her. And I'll say this, because the women's marathon has been so electric with super fast times in the last few years, Wanjiru has flown under the radar. There's Chepin Gedic in all of her glory and then infamy. There is Tigges de Seffa in her really fast times. There is Helen Obiri and Sharon Lokedi's rivalry. Like, those usually grab the headlines. Wanjiru, kind of a second thought, but look, second in Berlin in 2022, first in Tokyo in 2023, second in Tokyo 2024. I think I have the years right here. And then this year, her first Berlin victory. She's emerging as a competitor every single time and able to win off a fast time, off a difficult day. I'm curious to see what she's going to do next.
So she paced out the first half in 2:18.14 pace, so 1:09.07. Finishes the race in 2:21.05. So, she did it the hard way. She slipped in the last 10 kilometers in a much more predictable and like anticipated fashion, given the conditions. And by contrast to Sawe's performance, which like it just again kind of uncanny that the guy didn't fall off as badly as he did. He held on really nicely. She pulls off the victory and. Alex, you're right. She's somebody who you have to consider her in every major race you're going to see her in for the next few years. Again, she's 30 years old, so she is. She's at the peak of her powers as well. Okay, guys. Final takeaways from Berlin. What's I think the weather is the huge storyline here. I think Sawe's performance in spite of the weather is a huge storyline, is the positive storyline. I think concerns about the weather, and I think we don't have a final head count on how many people were in this race. Let's say 40 to 50,000 people who are running this race. For everybody else besides the elites, and even the elites as well, because there's definitely going to be a factor when you're trying to, when you're Sebastian Sawe next year. And, they were actually asking him in the post-race interview at the finish line. They're like, so you're going to come back next year and try to defend your title and maybe try to break the world record? And he had this look on his face kind of like, something like that.
He said yes. He said yes, but his face
yes, but it was kind of like, yes, but I don't want to be saying yes. If you're doing a deeper analysis and you're his agent and the guy is like, beaming with 1:59 fitness, and he just looks amazing going into to next fall. That's going to be a big question mark. It's like, do we go with this race? Do we go with Chicago? Do we go with Valencia? Don't know.
Because maybe he's going to want, like you're saying, Mike is probably going to want to race later in the year because he doesn't want to put up with the heat again. Because if he's just that close, I mean, Valencia's in December, a whole lot later. At least Chicago's a few weeks later. Maybe it won't be as warm. I don't know. But he might not want to take the chance again because he's just so close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. If there's a takeaway from this race, for me, it has to do with the heat. And I think this applies to the world majors. And I alluded to this a little bit earlier on. I think it's time for the majors to seriously consider their roster and how to make sure that some of these races remain absolutely fast. So I think that a good marathon happens at the top down level. When a marathon has very, very fast athletes at the top, it attracts brand money in that sense. It opens doors for a bigger race to be created, and eventually the experience for everyone tends to be good. Like I do believe it's a top-down thing. if they start as a participation race, but there's no elite side, there's something missing. And so races need to ensure that athletes can still run really fast at the very top level. And if things get warmer in Berlin and in Chicago, they're kind of in trouble. Like we talked about Berlin's brand as we were doing the preview podcast for this race. Like Berlin is the fast race. It's always been known as the fast race.
Right.
And if it's not fast, what is it? And sometimes you can say the same about Chicago too. Boston has its history. London has its well, the fact that it's in London. New York is the same thing. The palaces. And so what happens if these races become or are hijacked by really hot weather? I really think World Athletics needs to think about how they will keep these races fast, because if they don't, another race will. These startup events will keep happening, the marathon project type races that happen in December to make sure that athletes have some good weather to run in. Valencia is always fast, also happens late in the year. What's World Athletics going to do? And I think that at the very least, where they can start is have the Berlin Marathon next year happen at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I think that's a great
start.
point. I think that's a great point. And you know what? I don't know the complexities of Berlin municipal politics when it comes to events and road closure licensing, but you'd think that starting it earlier would be a win-win for everybody, because, there's a life to live for Berliners after this marathon wraps. They want to open the streets back up again, right? Like, it is a massive race. It's an important event for the city. The city embraces it for sure. Crowds were great today. Beautiful day for watching a marathon, right? The old
That's true.
saying, it's like, if it's a lovely, wonderful day to stand around in shorts and a t-shirt and take in a marathon in the sun, it's a tough day for runners. Berlin looked great today. Optics wise, from my perspective as a runner, as somebody who wants to do all these races and is curious about them and is watching them as much for my own kind of self-interest in wanting to, whether or not I want to do the event, Berlin looks like a great race. It's just that weather is terrifying. So if you're just going, you're motivated by different things, right? And Alex, not everyone is obsessed with running a PB and then or running as fast as they can. But you don't want to have a day where you're suffering for, the better part of 2, 3, 4 hours of the race after the first opening 10 kilometers, and you're just like sweating buckets, right? So you make a good point.
Yeah.
Make a good point.
Agreed.
One final thing I did notice, and maybe it's just because of the crowded schedule this season, and we're just coming off the back end of the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo, but I kind of felt like, although we did the preview pod and we were prepared for Berlin, we did our homework, we were excited about it, and coming out of Sydney, we're looking forward to Berlin. I felt like, just from the social media glow of it, just kind of like snuck up on everybody. It was like Friday afternoon, it was like social media posts start popping up, but it wasn't as buzzy as it was last year. Now, last year was the 50th anniversary, and I think Adidas spent quite a bit of money on it. But a little thing to note, and a friend of mine actually sent me a text about this, and was like, I think what happened here is a lot of the influencers in the running world were drawn to the World Athletics Championships on the free trip. For the most part, ASICS bringing them there, because ASICS is the major sponsor of World Athletics Championships. And they didn't go to Berlin this time. So you didn't get this is so amazing, glow from the running influencer ecosystem that you would get at other World Marathon majors. So conflicting events, battling for influencer output and attention. The trip to Tokyo won out over the trip to Berlin.
And we talked about this last year too we talked about this with the Paris Olympics, how you're also going to get a lot of, even with the fields, you're going to have a lot of competition when you have
That's right.
when you have another really big event close to these major marathons. And so this year it was the World Athletics Championships. Previously it was the Paris Olympics. And so next year, who knows?
So Michael, you're saying that no event is complete without a bunch of fashionable moths drawn to a flame.
Drawn to a free trip. Yeah.
Solidifying your undying love for influence.
Yeah. No. No. I mean, they're part of the ecosystem. It's part of, some could accuse us of being influencers, right? So,
How dare you?
It's just a matter of I think it's an important thing to understand, right? It's like runners will have a reaction to a race and they'll be like, Berlin looks so amazing. And part of the reason why we think or feel a way about something is kind of the wash of marketing and of content over time that passes over us with the event and kind of frames the event and presents it and provides a narrative for you of like what this event is like. And if there's less of that, you might feel differently about it. And I just thought that was an interesting scenario. I was like, oh yeah, there was less of it this year for Berlin. And this is the reason why, because there was all these people over in Tokyo pretending like they cared about track and field for the first time since the Olympics.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about that, but I think you have a point. It's I wondered why Berlin felt like it had snuck up on me like it had on everybody else.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, we were glued to World Athletic. We've been glued to it. I mean, we've been chatting about it all the time about the different events going on in the championships right now. So we were also pretty stuck on that just this morning, right before we hopped on the pod. Alex was like, "Oh, I'm watching the 4x1 relay. Yeah, 4x4 relay."
Yeah. So. and I'm gonna stick it here. It's not related to anything we're talking about, but I put my money on Cole Hawker to win the 1500 meter race at the World Athletics Championships, and he got disqualified. Didn't get a chance. He won the 5K, so like I get half points. He just won it this morning. So
we'll give you half points.
You're welcome. If Michael deserves points for choosing Dara Dida, who almost won the Berlin Marathon, I think I deserve as many half points for Cole.
All right, we'll award you half points. We should do a formal tally. Like 2026, we should just like keep track of all of our predictions and see how we each of us does, and we would probably all realize that none of us should be gambling.
Well, to be honest,
Melissa Jefferson, hello.
Yeah. Wow, that's my girl. Easy pick. That's a chalk pick.
You didn't think that Julian Alfred and all these other gals had a chance in there, really?
I thought so. I think that was a good pick, Caitlin. I think she was good for one of the two medals, but for two, I didn't put my money on it. And honestly, I'm happy that we're not keeping track this year because I think I'd be dead last. And Michael, in particular, with your marathon picks this year, you've been pretty good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you really have.
Still relishing that one. Okay.
Yeah, because now this is morphing into a World Athletics
we're just like
podcast,
like
which we
chat.
could go.
Yeah. Okay, so we will. What's next?
What's next, guys? We've got marathons coming. Chicago. Here we go.
Marathon is next. We will be doing quite a bit around Chicago. We'll be in Chicago.
Booked my flights, guys. We're ready.
We're all actually going
Let's
now.
go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And we said this in the preview podcast for Berlin on Thursday, but we'll put it out there now as well. If you're in Chicago, we're going to do like a little informal shakeout run. Nothing too dramatic. We'll figure out the exact details of it. But if you're interested, just email us at podcast@marathonhandbook.com. Email your questions for us. We're going to do a mailbag. Their big fall mailbag episode is coming up this coming Thursday. Send in your questions.
Nice.
Podcast@marathonhandbook.com. Or send us a voice note. You just go to marathonhandbook.com/podcast, and there's a link where you can record a voice note, which is awesome. We're getting a bunch of those. We'll play your recording, your question on the episode next week. Okay, guys. Until then.
Wait.
Until next time.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.